Good morning, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Deep Cut Dive. As you can see, he's back. You can stop asking for him.
Hey,
Chris
everybody.
Alo has returned.
Thanks for asking for me. Hope everybody's good.
Everybody's asking for you all the time. It's like,
Awesome.
there was one of our loyal viewers just said this morning, because I did an episode with Jeff Young yesterday,
Okay.
and this guy said, Pete, you have the absolute best guest co-hosts on this show anywhere. And
Wow.
I know it. I absolutely know it. And people have been, Chris hasn't been on the show since before COVID-19 hit. And all I keep hearing is, when's Chris Alo coming back on the show? When's Chris Alo coming back on the show? So,
that's very kind to hear, everybody. Thank you.
Well, I mean, it's like a dynamite host and co-host.
Absolutely.
The good combinations really work and people appreciate it. So, and you bring a lot of knowledge and fun, and we have good rapport. So
Awesome. Thank you.
I must say, I have the best crew of co-hosts on the show. I absolutely
and you've
love
been having some powerhouse guests lately. Holy smokes. I mean, I've been watching and I'm like, wow, man, you just Steve Morse and Brian Slagle, and I mean, the list has been Morton Popoff. I mean, it's crazy, amazing.
Yeah,
so,
well, it helps bring the show up even more. So I love having everybody on the show. It's like, I've always said that I do a lot of shows by myself, and that's fine. Right. But sometimes it gets kind of boring when you're by yourself. So I love having a co-host to come on and chit chat with, because that's what it's all about here. This is a music discussion show. I like bringing people on who know what they're talking about, who have a passion for the music, like me, like yourself. So it's been a couple months, but welcome back, Chris.
Yeah, so absolutely, Pete. Thanks so much.
So today we're going to take a look at each of us. I think each of us are going to give 5 deep cuts from the discography of Iron Maiden. These are not, I mean, Maiden's not really a radio band, but it's not the FM hits, the greatest hits compilation selections, the stuff that always appears on their live albums, the stuff they play live all the time. We're going to try and go a little bit deeper into their albums. So I'm going to ask Chris to start us off with his number 5, or there's no real order here. It's like I do mine chronologically, but you can do it however you want. And I'll let Chris start us off with his first pick or picks.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Iron Maiden really was a tough one for me. I was like, I was going through all the albums again last night, and I guess this speaks to the incredible depth of their catalog. Because when I was like, okay, let me put my top 5, deep cuts, and I'm like, I think my list was like 17 when I got to the end. I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, wow. I mean, and then I had to look them all up. And there was one that was a single that I didn't even realize. But, man, it's just some great material. And my personal criteria was, all right, have I seen them play it live? And if so, have I seen them play it live more than once?
Right, because I think almost every song that they've ever recorded, they played at least once, right? At least on one tour. Yeah, that was difficult. Yeah, exactly.
Totally. And then there was a couple where I was like, okay, well, they did play it on a tour in 1981 before I started going to concerts. So, maybe that one will be okay. So, and then I could only narrow it down. I had a tie for number 5. So, number 5 for me, coming as a tie, is Back in the Village from my favorite Maiden record, Power Slave, which I've never seen them do live, and I'm sure they did it back in '84 once somewhere. And I do love, and I can't believe it's been 20 years this year since this record came out, Brave New World, and I love track 2, Ghost of the Navigator, which they did do on that tour. And then they did it in 2010 on that tour before the Final Frontier came out. So I was like, okay, maybe this one I shouldn't even have on the list, but that was my...
Yeah, but I mean, I would think, because I thought long and hard about this, I would think anything Brave New World and up, for the most part, can be considered deep cuts, because...
Right.
I mean, you know what I'm talking about? It's like, there are probably like maybe 5 or 10 songs from the 80s that absolutely cannot be talked about today. We know what those are, right?
Yeah.
So I think like almost any of the more recent stuff, I mean, granted, there are a few that they play live every single tour, but I think anything off of these more recent albums can be considered here, right?
Oh, totally. And Pete, how did Brave New World come out 20 years ago?
I know, like, you were just saying that. I was like, really? Has it been 20 years?
Like, Bruce is back more than 20 years? I was like, that's crazy.
I know. I remember seeing that. Were you at the Garden show?
Wait, in 2000, I'm trying to think.
With Queensryche and Halford.
Queensryche and Halford. God, I'm getting so old, Pete. I know I saw that tour. No, I saw that tour I couldn't do the Garden show because I was seeing them somewhere else. I saw them in Hartford at the time it was called the Meadows Amphitheater. And I think that was I saw them there. And then I also saw them in Great Woods in Boston-ish area. But yeah, I didn't catch them at the Garden. It's so, it's always tough to, other than I was going over my head, I actually forgot about the Garden show. But I remember in 2000, they did, towards the end of the summer that year, the PNC Bank Arts Center. And I was like, why didn't I go to that one too?
Drop the ball, man.
Yeah. Well, especially now that there's no concerts. Now I wish I'd seen everything. But yeah, that's my pick for 5.
All right, so let's see. My first choice here. Get my notes. So I'm going to go all the way back to 1980. Okay. Strange World from the first album.
Okay. Great track.
Yeah, I you're going to see a little trend here on my picks. I went for a lot of the more kind of like moodier stuff. In my picks, kind of, and they did like 1 or 2 of these on every single album, right? And I think that a lot of those type of tracks, they didn't really play live much, a little off the beaten path. But I think Strange World is a great song.
Great track.
And a killer Di'Anno vocal on this, where he really kind of showed the depth of his voice. And it's kind of dreamy and kind of creepy and just kind of like, melancholy and very different for this band. So that's my choice.
Yeah, that's a great one.
You're
so
up.
For me, number 4, and I did see them play this at least once. Still Life from Peace of Mind. It's just a killer track. My favorite track off of the Peace of Mind record. I listened to it again last night. I'm like, God, this is amazing. Like, how is this not a concert staple? And but yet recently they've been playing the hell out of Blood Brothers and some other tracks that I'm like, this again. So yeah, that's my it's got that ethereal kind of part to it, and I just love the track.
Well, we were on the same page because that was also my second choice.
Oh, no kidding.
I love Still Life, and I agree with you. It was always one of my favorites from this album. Originally I was not going to pick anything from those first couple Bruce albums because everybody knows those so well. But I said, man, Still Life was like the ignored song off of this. And again, falls in line with kind of the rest of my picks. It's kind of moody and kind of, atmospheric and all that kind of stuff. And it's got that weird intro thing that everybody, when that album first came out, we were like, what the hell is they saying there? What is that?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And I remember I saw them, the first time I saw them play it was in the No Prayer for the Dying tour when they had Anthrax open. I saw them at the Meadowlands, I think. And I was like, I couldn't believe they were playing it then. And I can't remember if they played it. I saw them in Europe in 2005 on that Early Days tour, where in Europe they played all the good stuff, and then they came to America and played just the hits.
Welcome to America.
There you go. But yeah, Still Life, such a great track. And how that gets overlooked, I'm like, yeah. But yeah.
Well, we love it. That's all that matters, right?
Absolutely. All right, so are you up or am I up?
You're up. Go for it.
All right. So my number 3, and this one, I had to make sure this one wasn't a single. I'm like, did this come out as like a single even for Live After Death? And it didn't. And I saw them play it once, as far as I know, but Murders in the Rue Morgue from Killers. I know I saw them do it on the on that Early Days tour in Europe, and I don't think I ever saw them do it again. Just a great track, and it's so interesting listening to it again last night. I'm like, well, Ides of March and Wrathchild have that perfect intro and then a killer track, and I'm like, wow, but Murders in the Rue Morgue also sort of has that awesome intro and then right into a killer track. And I know they did open with Murders in the Rue Morgue on the Number of the Beast tour, I think.
Well, yeah, it was somewhat of a staple in their set, like very early on, but then
Early on.
inexplicably it just like dropped. I never understood that. Like, why is that still not part of Maiden's regular set list? I have no idea.
Yeah. So that one I'm like, you know, I don't know if I should have picked that one, but that's one of my favorite Maiden cuts. So
Yeah.
that was.
I think back in the day, that was among like the people that I hung out with, and everybody was into Maiden. That was easily one of like the top 5 Maiden songs back, pre 85 or so.
Right.
So yeah, it's just kind of like disappeared into the annals of like Iron Maiden recorded history, and it's like, but wait a second, it's still like kick-ass song. It's like, why are they not playing that all the time?
Totally. And yeah, when I was going, clicking through the history of Maiden, I'm like, okay, no, yeah, this wasn't a single. I'm like, but like Drifter was a single, and Purgatory, and all these other ones. I'm like, yeah, how did you miss Murders in the Rue Morgue? And yeah, it was not like a live single. That was like Sanctuary and a couple other ones. So, but yeah, just an amazing track. So yeah, I wish they would bring it back. Hell, while going through this, Pete, I was like, like so many other Maiden fans, I was like, well, when are they going to do a tour where they can just play like obscure stuff, like all these songs we're mentioning today? But
Yeah.
who knows if we'll ever get it? Probably not.
They may do it, but they probably won't do it here.
That's true.
Right.
That's true. Some rest of the world will get it.
Yeah, exactly. Metal fans here in the U.S., they don't want that.
Yeah.
They just want to hear the same old, same old.
Right. Bruce will just complain about Americans, but yeah, it's true.
All right, my third choice. I'm going to go to the Dance of Death album, which is this bad boy right here, for a song called "Face in the Sand."
Ah, okay.
I love that song. That's again, the trend here is these kind of slow build melancholy songs. I think, and this is a Smith, Harrison, Dickinson track. Great to see when they all kind of collaborate on the songs. I think it's got a really memorable chorus. It's got the big galloping rhythms, but more importantly, it's got this big symphonic, majestic kind of flair to it. It's like this is like their big, like kind of like epic sounding track on this album, and I just totally dig it. And again, a lot of songs on this album, all really long, so the band can only pick a couple. Excuse me, live, right? So, and a lot of them just kind of like get ignored and forgotten. And
totally.
I've always kind of liked this album a lot, and I think that's one of the hidden gems on the album for me.
100%. Well, like you said, epic. I'm like, wait, isn't like every song on that record?
Yeah,
like
pretty
epic?
much. But but sometimes you have to think of epic not just as length, but kind of like
100%.
You know what I'm saying? The bigness of the sound, the kind of epic is a word that gets tossed around when you're talking about like progressive rock music quite a bit. So
yeah,
epic doesn't always mean song lengths. And I think like Maiden had a lot of big epic songs. I think like Stargazer, Rainbow epic, that type of thing. It's just got this big bombastic sound, and I think that song perfectly kind of exemplifies all of that whole thought process.
100%. And it's funny when you mention epic, because lots of times too epic means length. And when I was listening to Maiden stuff last night, one that didn't make my list is the title track of No Prayer for the Dying, which is a song I really like. And as I'm going through it, I'm like, in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, this song is epic. And I'm like, wait, it's only 4 minutes and 41 seconds? I'm like, in my head, I'm like, this was like an 8-minute song. But then at the same time, when I'm listening to it, I'm like, well, if Maiden recorded it today, it would be 12 minutes.
Of course.
But I'm like, wow, they did so much in, less than 5 minutes. But yeah, I totally agree with you on your epic description.
Yep.
But yeah, that's a great track for sure. And I dig that record. It was good.
I think out of all, you know what it is? I think out of all the albums that they released since Dickinson came back in the band, Brave New World was the big album, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I think this one kind of got forgotten about because like, okay, he's back. Everything's back to normal again. And then they put out a bunch of them. And I think this one is a lot stronger than people give it credit for.
Totally. And to their, they almost kind of did it to themselves by burying that record, because that was the album where they made that weird announcement where they're like, yeah, we're not going to tour much anymore. So when they did that record, I remember they did 4 nights at Hammerstein Ballroom. And then I think they did LA, and like, that was it. That was their US tour, 2 cities. So I'm like, well, no wonder, people didn't pay attention as much to that record, which, yeah, really is a solid record.
Yep. Yep.
I almost put Passchendaele on here because I really like that track. It's another just big, bombastic epic. There's so much going on. They did play it on that tour. I don't think they ever played it since. But yeah, I left it off.
Good song. That was my other choice potentially from this album.
Oh, okay. That's funny.
All right, your fourth
so
pick. What do you got? Yep.
All right, so I put, and again, I'm like, was this a single? I'm like, is this cheating? And I'm like, well, I only ever saw them do it once. And I'm like, you know, it's definitely significant in the history of the band, and it's Prowler. I mean, it's one of my favorite Maiden tracks. And it just, every time I hear that riff, it just blows me away. Again, the Di'Anno stuff is so good. I saw them do it one time on that History of Iron Maiden tour in Belgium in 2005. I couldn't believe I was hearing it. And it's just a great track. That's I think it's on. They did do it again in Europe. They didn't do it in America on their Fear of the Dark tour, but they did it in Europe. That was the one time that they brought it back in a an album tour. But man, I just love that track. That riff is just unbelievable. And of course, it was on the Soundhouse tapes, which I don't have an original of, but I have a bootleg somewhere. But man, and which was a hit, I guess, as far as helping get the band notoriety and get signed and everything. But yeah, not a single. Definitely kind of a deep cut because all these greatest hits records totally ignore most of the Di'Anno stuff, unfortunately, and particularly that track.
Yeah,
and I just love that song.
It's a good one. It's a great kind of kick in the teeth to start off that album, right?
100%.
Yeah, I think if they were to kind of pull that out today, the diehards would be totally all over it, and the casual fans would be like, "I don't know what this is. When are you playing Run to the Hills?" Right?
Exactly. Where's Number of the Beast?
Yeah, exactly.
Where's Eddie? But yeah, I love Prowler.
Yeah, it's a good track. I also was looking at that one because I wanted to pick something from the first album. It was either that or Strange World. So both great choices. All right, so I'm going to go my next pick to the Final Frontier album from 2010. Another kind of like Dance of Death, another kind of like not talked about album of theirs, post Bruce coming back into the band.
Right.
I'm going to go with Isle of Avalon, another big long track, right?
That record is full of epics.
Oh, big time. You got that kind of 2-minute kind of like weaving and fluttering intro. You got the catchy Bruce vocal. You got some killer guitar solos from the guys in this band. And I think some really, really good drumming from Nico on this song. But again, yeah, an album full of, I'm looking at the track listing here. I mean, everything is like 8.5, 6.5, 5.5, 5.5, 7, 9, 8, 9, 8, 12. I mean, it's just like,
right.
It's, and there's people who don't like that style of writing from Maiden. There's people who love it. So I always laugh when people complain about, it's like I don't like these long songs that they do. It's like, well, they've been doing it for 20 years, 20 plus years, actually.
Yeah.
And actually the lengthy stuff started back in the 80s. So it's not like this is not new, right? I don't know. I don't mind it. I like all Maiden, every era. So it doesn't matter to me. But I think, and again, this song is like nestled like right in the middle of a really long album. So you really, I was also looking at The Man Who Would Be King, which is another pretty cool tune on here.
Okay. That's a good one. It's funny because I originally had on my master list, that one's not one of my favorite records, but I had the title track, The Final Frontier, and then when I looked it up, I was like, wow, it actually came out as it was a single, at least a video, which I kind of forgot about. Yeah. So I was like, okay, well that comes off the list, which of course they didn't play that in America on that tour because they, for some reason, launched a massive tour before the record came out. So they did that big tour, and then they only did that El Dorado in America, and then they did the rest of the tour and actually played songs from that record, and then never came back to America to play anything. So, but yeah, that's an interesting album, absolutely full of epics.
Oh yeah.
But my number one pick, and I'm like, man, this proves what a great track this song is. Total Eclipse, which was the B-side to Run to the Hills in 1982, was recorded for the Beast, and then for whatever reason, the band decided to use it as a B-side, and in subsequent years, in reissues, they decided, that's a great track, and I can't keep up with all the Maiden reissues, but I know at some point they started to put it back on Number of the Beast, which technically does mess up the sequencing of the original record, but to me, it's an incredible track, which they played. I know they played it in Europe on the Number of the Beast tour, but I don't know if they ever played it in the States. I know I certainly never saw them do it live.
Yeah, you have to kind of wonder, like, if that would have been on the original album.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
The LP, it'd be hard to fit it on there, but just think about that, because it is a great
LPs,
song.
Of course, back then, if you had 9 songs, like, that was it. It wasn't until the 90s where, okay, let's put out a record with 17 songs on it. So I think today it probably would have been, but I love that track. And it's to me, it speaks to how good of a song it is, where Steve Harris, who calls all the shots, was like, let's put that song back on the album, because it really should have been there. To me, I'm like, how did Gangland make the record, but Total Eclipse didn't?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, because I was actually just going to ask you if you were to take off one song from Number of the Beast and insert that in, and you picked the same one that I would have.
Yeah, definitely. That or Invaders is okay.
Yeah. Well, those are the two weakest on the album by far.
So,
yeah, by far.
But yeah, Total Eclipse is my number one.
Good choice. For my last deep cut selection, I'm going to go to the very last album, Book of Souls. Another album full of epics, right? And The Man of Sorrow.
Great track.
Another one of those tunes that has like the kind of like long, some people might say dragged out little opening. You got Harris's bass kind of like, bumbling along and what have you. A lot of cool layers of guitars on here. It's pretty melodic, actually. Nice vocal from Bruce. Murray and Harris writing the song. Of course, they wrote the song. They're, Murray's doing most of the guitar solos in there. Just, I think, a really cool kind of moody, epic song, which they really do quite well now, whether people like it or not. That's what they kind of excel at, as opposed to, the kind of speedier, faster, galloping stuff, which they can still do, and they do. But I think this is kind of the headspace that they're in right now. And I'm okay with it. So for me, that's another gem from this album, which, jam-packed album full of content. I mean, it's like,
Oh, for sure. I mean, I thought about that, something off that record last night, but I'm like, I'm like, I got to listen to the whole thing. It's like 3 hours long, this record. I'm like, I don't have the time. But I do really like that record, though. And I like that record much more than Final Frontier.
Yeah, I agree with it. It's a little bit stronger. And the thing about it's been 5 years now since the Book of Souls. So
that's crazy.
I was looking at that. I was like, 5 years. You got to think something's got to be coming soon, right? Then
how did that happen? Yeah, I'm sure that in secret that they recorded a record, but they're probably sitting on it because now is the worst time to put out anything. It's either the worst time or the best time, because everybody's home and dying to hear something, but also a terrible time because of everybody's so preoccupied with other things and unemployment, and nobody's touring. So
nobody's touring.
It could totally get lost in the shuffle. So. Yeah, crazy time. But wow, 5 years. How did that happen?
I don't know. It seemed like, I mean, I think I saw you at the show, right? In Jersey. Yeah. It's like, geez, 5 years already. It's like, holy cow.
Jeez, time is going
man. So there you have it, everybody. There's you got 10 selections here from deep in the catalog of Iron Maiden. So if you are someone who is not that familiar with Maiden, or maybe only knows the more popular songs, here are 5 tracks from each of us to go and investigate, and hopefully you like what you hear and you want to go investigate those albums fully. I urge all the other Maiden heads who are watching today to offer up some additional deep cuts from their catalog for those who are watching who may not know them too well. So do that in the comments below. I'd like to thank Chris Alo for jumping back on the show with us here for the first time in a couple months. Chris is coming right back because we're going to be doing the same thing with Ronnie James Dio's band Dio. So the Dio catalog, we're going to each offer up 5 deep cuts from that catalog. So stay tuned for that. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. Chris, you want to plug anything?
Unfortunately, my magazine shut down like everything else. So More Sugar Magazine isn't printing at the moment. So I guess no.
Hopefully soon. Hopefully soon.
Things are looking up. Maybe certain parts.
All right, sounds good. So for Chris Alo, I'm Pete Pardo. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.